It was a cold December night, just a week before Christmas. My family always spends Christmas at a summer house in the Hamptons, New York. The Hamptons are usually quiet this time of the year, as most of the homes are owned by wealthy people who spend the holidays at one of their other properties. My dad and I arrived at the house early ahead of the rest of the family. My mom and sister still had work until the weekend, but my dad, who was retired, and I decided to get a head start. School was already out for the winter break, and we wanted to settle in before the predicted snowstorm. The house sits at the end of the quiet end road. We each have our own room, and as usual, my dad took care of turning on the heat and water. I brought along my PS3 to keep myself entertained and spent most of the first day playing video games in my room. That night, a massive snowstorm blanketed the area in at least 2 feet of snow. The next morning, as I stumbled into the kitchen, my dad greeted me with a curious question. When did you build the snowman? Confused, I asked, what's snowman? He led me out to the window overlooking our backyard. There, standing tall amidst the fresh snow, was a snowman. It had two stick arms angled upwards and its face carved into the head, wore a sinister smile, its hollow eyes seemingly staring straight into the window. I didn't make that, I told him, a shiver creeping up my spine. My dad shrugged it off, assuming the neighbor's kids were behind the odd prank, but something about it unsettled me. That night, I was sound asleep when a loud thump against my window jolted me awake. My heart pounded as I froze under the covers, too scared to move. 5 minutes passed, and I started rationalizing. Maybe it was just snow falling from the roof. Cautiously, I pulled back the blanket and peered out the window. What I saw made me scream. Another snowman stood directly outside my window. Unlike the first, this one wore an angry frown. Its arms, jagged and gnarled, seemed to reach out towards me. I screamed for my dad, and he came rushing into the room, pointing to the window. I stammered, look, it's right there. The first time, my dad wasn't as dismissive. He promised to speak with the neighbors in the morning. I was too terrified to sleep in my own room after that and spent the rest of the night in my sister's room. The next morning, my dad went next door to confront the neighbors, but the house was empty. No cars in the driveway, no signal of life. The family wasn't even in town. They were the only neighbors with kids, leaving us with no explanation. For several days, nothing else happened. The tension eased, and we began to enjoy our time in the Hamptons. But on Christmas Eve, with the whole family gathered, the unease returned. We were in the living room before dinner when a knock came at the front door. The sound was startling. We weren't expecting anyone. My dad approached cautiously and called out, who's there? A muffled voice on the other side replied, please let me in. I need help. There was no window or peepholes in the door, leaving us unable to see who it was. My dad asked, what's wrong? The voice responded, I have no one to spend Christmas with. Please help me. We all exchanged uneasy glances. My dad firmly told the person to leave or we'd call the police. After a pause, the voice said, okay, I'll leave. Please don't call the police. The door never opened. On Christmas morning, we found a note taped to the front door. It read, I just wanted to have a little fun. I built this snowman for the boy in the house. I don't have anyone to play the holidays with. The note's vague, haunting tone left us deeply unsettled. Whoever left it was clearly unstable, whether their intentions were harmless or dangerous. We were grateful we never opened that door on Christmas Eve. To this day, the memory of the snowman and the stranger at the door still sends chills down